Good morning, this is Andres. It's Tuesday, July 8th, about, well, it's exactly 5:55 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm in the home of my parents, and I'm about to do a Spanish version of Points of View. If you're not familiar with Points of View essentially is a way of exploring a desire, a need, an expectation, a situation, or just to do a check-in with where you are in your life. I happen to be blessed right now with the Spanish version of Points of View. So my exploration will be primarily in Spanish, although I will translate to English occasionally. The exploration board itself is essentially a piece of cloth, and the piece of cloth has either 3 boxes or 5 boxes, exploring themes like relationships, waking up, what you've gained and what you've lost, and then also past, present, and future. So this morning I chose Despertar, which is an awakening, basically. I'll read it in Spanish, but then also roughly translate into English for those of you that don't understand the Spanish language. El objetivo del tablero es crear un despertar acerca de algún tema y observarlo a detalle desde diferentes perspectivas. So the objective of this worksheet is to create an awakening about a theme or an issue, and to examine it in detail from different perspectives. Elegir un tema de tu vida que te gustaría observar a detalle. So choose a theme or an issue or a problem or a situation in your life that you'd like to examine more closely. And then in parentheses it says un problema, una decisión, un proceso actual, una relación o algo más. A problem, a decision you've made, an actual act or a process, a relationship, or something else. And I will be fully disclosing, I guess, my personal situation in this video. If it's something that bothers you, then please don't watch this. My specific exploration is, I've just gone through a tremendous change, and I'm going through a tremendous change in shifting my focus from trying to sustain myself in my profession as a primary focus, and shifting over to caregiving to my parents as my primary focus, with the career or income generating aspect of my life coming secondarily. And I made that choice basically because both of my parents are in their 80s, and they both function fairly well and are doing okay, but they are reaching a point in life where they need a lot of support and assistance. And in agreement with my one sibling, my sister, we decided that I would be the one that would be moving home when it was time for this. So it became time for this, and so I left San Antonio, my home of 5 years. Previous to that, I lived in Austin for 26 years. And now I am back in my hometown where I grew up, Fort Hancock, Texas. So it's a very strange shift. So the first step in this, it says, escriba la tema claramente en las notas de enfoque y colócalo aquí. So what this thing includes, I don't know if there's one in here. I don't think there is. There's usually a booklet. So if you do purchase this tool, there's almost like a ticket, and in that ticket is where you write down specifically what it is you're exploring. So for me, the exploration is the shift. I'm very curious about, was it time? How did I do? How am I doing? What might it look like in the future? So it's an awakening to something brand new. I've never been trained specifically in caregiving. I have been trained in sexual health and wellness, in career coaching and other aspects, but this is the whole aspect of caregiving in the context of a loved one, whether it's a partner, a parent, a friend, a family member. It's very different. It's a very unique path, because the assumption essentially is that you're going to walk beside them until they transition or they move beyond this life, or die, whatever works best for you. It's kind of fascinating because on the other side of my head you can see a picture of my mother and my father. And then it says, aleatoriamente toma 5 tarjetas y trabaja en el siguiente orden. So the tool comes with a deck of cards. I think it's either 56 or 58. And they're cards that have different themes on them. Every card has a word across the bottom, and it's a picture. And it's a visual exploration, basically. It's a way of looking at things differently by using photographs, images. And I found it to be incredibly powerful for counseling sessions, coaching sessions, therapeutic sessions, for myself, with others, with friends, with groups. This specific product is produced in Israel by the Points of View company. And they're a wonderful group of people. It was a startup when I did this. I'm not really active with them anymore, in the sense that I didn't take any of their advanced training. It's something that I didn't feel I could take on because I was studying to complete my dissertation. At that point, I just didn't have the time for it, and I couldn't invest in it. So then across the top it says, notas de enfoque, despertar. So your notes regarding your exploration of your awakening. Un ejemplo. He comenzado algo nuevo en lo que quiero tener éxito. I have started to do something brand new that I want to do well or successfully. Estoy atravesando por un crisis y me siento atrapado. Realmente no entiendo qué me está pasando. So in English it says, basically this means I'm going through a crisis and I feel trapped. And in reality, I don't understand what's going on, basically. And then in this specific board, there are 5 questions, and therefore 5 cards that I chose at random and put on the board upside down so I didn't get to see what I chose. The flexibility of this tool is you're able to choose the cards if you like, or you go the opposite direction, which is you choose them at random and you don't know what you've chosen. I prefer that approach because rather than going through a deck of cards and choosing those things that I think relate to the question, I kind of leave it to the randomness of the practice to see what the universe brings to the board by choosing these pictures sight unseen. There are 5 questions that I'm going to explore. The first one is, ¿cuál es la verdadera cuestión. And in English, that means, what is the real question here? So you start by basically, you have what you think you're exploring. And so that first question is trying to dig deeper into what the actual question is. Often when we run into an issue, a problem, a situation, we think we know what's wrong, but often we don't spend the time to really think about, is this really what the problem is? So that first question kind of dives into that part of things. The second question is, ¿qué me está deteniendo o sujetando? ¿Qué me está deteniendo o sujetando? So what's holding me or holding me back? ¿Qué me está deteniendo, right? Or sujetando, what is supporting me? Or what is, where am I placing this? How is it that I'm holding this? The third question is, ¿cuáles son las oportunidades ante mí? What are the opportunities that lie ahead for me? ¿A qué le temo? So this is, I'm fairly fluent in Spanish. Sometimes I run into phrasing or language that I can't really comprehend well. I was born on the U.S.-Mexico border, and so my grandparents and those before them spoke all Spanish, and my parents spoke mostly English. But we were encouraged to learn both languages, and in fact, I consider myself the proud use of what's called code switching, which is essentially using one language, and when you forget what the word is in that language, you switch to the opposite language. You see code switching happening a lot along the U.S.-Mexico border or along the border of any two countries, right? When people know multiple languages. It's a admittedly easy way to get past, to communicate quickly by essentially making use of two languaes. And I believe a lot of people have studied code switching. It's called other things in the literature, but this is a way of kind of getting past things. ¿A qué le temo to me is the way I'm reading it is asking, so what's the theme of this? What is what is the tone of this, basically? And then the other question, and I actually went the wrong way. This is just a sequence. I should have gone the other way, but anyway. ¿Qué me motiva a seguir adelante? What's motivating me to move forward in this situation, this problem, this issue, whatever it is? So that is the whole of it in terms of the setup. I do have my camera that shows you the cards, and in the future I will share that. But right now, I will show you the cards as I pick them and what I'm exploring. But I'm not going to do that here now because it's a little uncomfortable. So the first question, ¿cuál es la verdadera cuestión? What is the real question here? Now, as a reminder, I have made a very significant change in my life. I have shifted priorities from focusing primarily on my career to focusing primarily on caregiving for my family, specifically my mother and my father. And so my career in my mind is taking a secondary role. That doesn't mean I'm abandoning my career. It just means that my priorities are family first. I can tell you before I start exploring, that's something that was ingrained in me. I always knew at some point, barring tremendous abundance of wealth, and even with that I would focus on trying to spend these years with my parents, my mother and my father, because they have done so much for me. They've given me so much. They've sacrificed so much of their lives for both me and my sister. And so this is a way of me giving back. This is a way of me being there with them and also getting to know them in ways that perhaps I didn't get to know when I was, up till year 18. Who we are as teenagers or younger people are very different to who we are as, I would call myself now, upper middle age person. I'm 54 years old. I To me, middle age is like 30s, 40s. So I'm an upper. I guess I'm kind of avoiding. I don't really feel I'm elderly yet, but I'm getting there. I'm within earshot of it. So that's the best way to put it. So what is the real question here, right? And so I'm picking up the first card, and you'll see it as I see it. So this is the first card. And in the bottom it says puntos de vista, which is basically a way of saying your point of view. Now, the way you start basically is you look at the photograph without really paying attention to the phrase itself, and you kind of explore it. Like, what is it that you're seeing? Well, I'm seeing what I think is a polar bear swimming in the water. Yeah, I wouldn't, doesn't look like a seal, it doesn't look like a dolphin or a shark or a whale. It's a polar bear. And there's a little girl who is looking at this huge polar bear behind a glass wall. Looks like she's going to be in an aquarium of some type. She's wearing a cute red hat, white shirt, and pink pants, and she has it looks like a ponytail or her hair. Now, the first thing that may come up to you, especially if you're a person that's highly attached to logic, is, what the hell are you doing? How does this have anything to do with what you were talking about on this, which is life transition? You're about to see how. Now, the challenge of using this tool is that you have to, it forces you to think differently if you're willing to engage with it. If you're very logical, left-brained, it's very hard at first to work with a tool like this because there's seemingly nothing that I can derive from this photograph that would help me in my issue. However, I can tell you right now that I probably feel like that little girl in that she's facing this new creature, this new animal behind this glass wall. The glass wall, the aquarium wall, whatever you want to call it, probably represents time. So before she arrived at this specific exhibit or at this polar bear behind this wall, she probably, got dressed, was in familiar surroundings, and then mommy or daddy or the guardian or the babysitter or the grandparents said, let's go to the aquarium. And she probably has never been to the aquarium before. And now she's finding herself standing inches away from this beast. For me, that beast, the polar bear behind the glass wall, represents the challenge that I have, which is caregiving. I've never seen this creature before in person. I've never interacted with it in person. It's there in front of me. Typically with something that, from what I understand, children have never seen before. Part of the fascination, the desire to be at a zoo or an art museum or anything is the absorption of new information, the learning, right? I saw a polar bear for the first time, a real one. Well, I'm looking at caregiving for the first time, real caregiving. And so then I think about the emotion she's going through. There's fear. In her case, there's fear of this animal. What if this animal were to escape and it wasn't a nice animal? Could it devour me? Absolutely. Is it a different world? Yes. I don't breathe water, right? I don't breathe caregiving. She's probably wondering, there's a curiosity. she may have been familiar with brown bears, for example, but not a polar bear. So it's like, wow, this one's got white hair. And, the brown bear I saw when we went camping, is kind of looks like this animal, but kind of doesn't. So as it relates to me, I've seen caregiving, and I've given some support around caregiving on a limited basis with patients, but nothing like this, which is whole. It's a huge thing. At least that's how I'm perceiving it. And so the real question here is, what I'm drawing is, I'm facing fear, but I'm recognizing that it wasn't at the front of my focus when I knew I had to change. I had a real big emotional break when I knew I had to move home. But that had to do with an attachment to my pets. I own 2 cats. And I realized in the moving process that even though my apartment was exactly the way I wanted it, and I surrounded myself with beautiful things that I liked, those belongings really didn't mean a whole lot in the end. I wanted those pets. They were my companions. I'm single. I've been single all my life. I've had roommates in the past, but not in several years. But my attachment was to the cats. And I knew coming home, boy, I got a lot to handle, right? And so this is the kind of that point of confrontation. I'm here. This is probably a good reflection of how I feel right now. It's like, I've been here 2 or 3 days. I've managed to help some, but I'm paying very close attention to the relationship dynamic. In this case, the little girl's relationship dynamic to this animal, this huge, dangerous animal on the other side of the wall. For me, it's the dynamic of me and the home I entered, and the roles and how they were going to shift is another kind of fear. So that was the first one. What is the real question? Are you scared? How scared are you? What does it look like? Little girl can't see all sides of this animal, right? So maybe she's wondering, well, what does it look like on the other side? On the side she can't see in the window. All of those things are going through my head in relation to coming home, to play the caregiving role. So that's the first card. So now moving to number 2. Card number 2 is ¿Qué me está deteniendo o sujetando? What is holding me back, or what is sustaining me or supporting me? And you're going to see this card at the same time that I am. And this is the picture. And at the bottom of the picture, it says bridge. So sometimes before you kind of dive into how can I relate this to my issue or problem, you start by looking at, what are you actually seeing? I get this vibe that this is probably Europe. I don't know why, but the signage to me, it speaks of Paris or perhaps London or something like that. I don't get this. These are Americans for some reason. They're 2 young people, not really teenagers, I think, probably more young adults. They're wearing the same color clothes. The girl has green hair. I'm assuming she's a girl. Could be a guy or someone who's gender fluid. And they're both listening to the earphone. One earphone, so it's a headset that's meant to be worn by one person, but they're choosing to share it. Okay, so the reason, they might be foreigners. They might be in some location on the streets, and they're exploring the history of the city. And so they are basically listening to, one of those museum tapes that tells you all about the history of different attractions in a city. So I don't think this is a common place that they've been before, but they're learning. and they're trying to learn, and they're learning by immersing themselves into the experience. And the bridge, to me, the word bridge, we didn't explore the word actively in the previous one, which is points of view, but we kind of did. I just didn't mention it as much. The bridge essentially is the bridge maybe between them, the audio. It could be the bridge to foreigners in a new world. It could be the bridge to knowledge. How do I relate this to my situation? I am in a new environment, a new yet familiar environment. What's coming into my mind is, in a way, this is historical in that I grew up here. I lived here 18 years before I left to college. A lot has changed and a lot is the same. So there's this historical or time element in my situation. I'm returning to something, but it's the same and it's different from what it used to be. How is it different? There are more buildings, there are more people here, there are people that I don't know. I remember growing up here, I knew everybody. Now, there aren't as many people around that I've seen, that I've met in the days I've been here that I know. I'm also learning by immersion. So I'm here with my parents and I'm watching them, I'm observing them. In a way, they're sort of like the polar bear to me. Like, what has this thing grown up to be? Who have they grown up to be? What are they struggling with? How is this new person in front of me? Because I'm a new person to them. I'm coming in as an adult now. And I know I'm not the kid I used to be. They're not the parents they used to be. And so it's the whole learning through immersion and experience. So what's holding you or sustaining you? I would say familiarity, a knowledge that I gathered, not so much when I got here. I am gathering clues, but there's a lot that I learned while I was away. It's sort of like a ethnographic study. It's when you do research and you go into a culture, you learn by immersion. You become part of that culture to become trusted, to learn more about customs, to learn more about behaviors, relationships, methods, the way they see the world, how they see the world. It's very anthropological. And so for me, I left here and didn't specifically learn about what it would be like to return to my hometown as a caregiver, but more so how to use new lenses, how to come in as an anthropologist, an ethnographer, a person that essentially comes in and studies, because as much as I think I know my parents, even in the 4 days that I've been here, I've learned more. And in my case, as the caregiver, I'm studying everything that they do and how they do things in order to figure out how can I support them? How can I prepare them for what's coming? How can I walk this walk with them? And it's as enriching an experience for me as it is for them. A lot of people just make the choice that they're not going to be there for their biological or parents of choice or guardians of choice. I want to make sure and emphasize, I'm not judging here. I don't think everyone should do this. I don't think anyone has to or needs to do it. This is my path, and this is a path I've chosen. And as much as I think about, well, what would it be like to be not carrying this specific responsibility, and now they're trying to make a name for myself in my career, in my field, or whatever, that can still be done. But I'm walking with this lens that I had as a child, that family was important. For me, my family of birth is at the core. And I've also noticed while I was gone, that's not necessarily the case with a lot of other families. Most of the people that I've met, their parents have divorced, or one has passed, or both have passed, or the relationship dynamic was not what I would call homogeneic to Christianity, meaning my parents are monogamous. They've been together for 56 years. They followed I would call it the Brady Bunch story. Although in that story, I believe one of the former parents passed and the other one divorced or something, but it's the ideal, right? It goes back to television when I was a kid. When I watched television shows, there was always a mommy and a daddy, a pretty house. The daddy had a nice job. Mommy stayed at home and took care of the kids, and there was a white picket fence and all of that. And that just doesn't, it's what I grew up in a sense, with a definite Latino, Mexicano kind of flair. So what's sustaining me, I think, is those lenses, that belief system. And what's holding me back also, this is harder to touch upon, but what's holding me back is, what does it mean to be a parent, a child of parents that you're going to caregive? And what is it meant to be a caregiver? They're two very different roles. They're two very distinct things. And so the relationships have to shift. And that's not necessarily easy for anybody that's involved. So I know that that's going to start happening. I'm going to have to push it to happen to some extent. And that's holding me back, because there's this benefit to being mom and dad's little boy, right? Their kid. And it's not, if I'm here as a caregiver, that's not my role any longer. Can I go back and be that? Absolutely, I could. Would they even care? Probably not. But I have to hold very close to myself the understanding that my role here is primarily as a caregiver. I'm going to start making the decisions. I'm going to start to enforce the rules. I am going to start to create organization for them. I'm going to start to help them understand how to let go and let other people care for them. And one of the biggest tools, interestingly, in this home, with my mother specifically, less than my father, is faith. Going to church, Roman Catholic. I go to church with my mother now, since I've been here, and I made that promise to her. As long as she wanted to go, we would go. I don't consider myself a practicing Catholic anymore. There are various reasons for that I won't get into, but I will go for her, and I have no problems being in a Catholic church. There's just certain practices of Catholicism that I had to let go, because those are practices that are to be taken on by people who have declared themselves to be members of the Catholicism community, Catholic community, of which I do not consider myself any longer to be that. But the whole let go and let God is sort of like it's that tool that you use to kind of wedge, in my case, my parent away from negativity, belief systems, having faith. It's like what a parent does for a child, right? When a child is growing up, your parent may sit you down and talk to you about something in an effort to have you change your perspective, because they know you're in a bad place and they don't want you to be in a bad place the entire time, because that keeps you from growing. So that'd be my evaluation. So we've been through 2 cards already. The third one is que me motiva a seguir adelante. So what's motivating me to go forward? Again, you're going to see the card the same time that I am. And the word is love, amor. And what I see essentially is, I think it's a chestnut that's been broken in half, cut in half, and there's a heart inside. So this is the meat. This is when you eat a chestnut, this is the part that you eat. And this is the shell. So the shell, it tends to be very hard, difficult sometimes to break open walnuts. But then this is a reward, the soft inner part, the part that's edible. I guess the shell would be edible technically, but it's not particularly tasty. And I don't think it's poisonous, but people don't usually eat walnut shells. But the word and the picture in relation to what's motivating you to seek forward, love. And I have a few things to say about that. In relation to this situation, I recognize that love comes in many forms. And to sustain love is a give and take. It's the letting go of some things and the taking on of some things that you maybe don't want to take on. I'm doing this out of love for my parents. I know we're going to reach a point where there will be a lot of friction, but I don't want to use forcing my agenda, but I will be insisting on specific behaviors, practices, and beliefs out of love, because I want them to enjoy this time. So yeah, love is what is sustaining me, and it's motivating me. ¿A qué la temo? ¿A qué le temo? So what is kind of the bigger picture here? What is the theme? Oh, this is interesting. So the word at the bottom is dolor, which is pain. And it's a picture of a man who, we don't see all of them. We see his shoulder, and we see kind of a face. And he's sort of grimacing, looks like he's in a lot of pain. So what does it say? What is the theme here? The theme is that pain is a very unique theme in relation to caregiving. If you're doing it out of love, you're going to tolerate the pain because you love. Now, if I was a caregiver that maybe I wasn't with my parents and I was with someone I didn't really know well or had made a big impact on my life, I won't say that I would hurt any less, but it's a different kind of pain. It's a different kind of pain if you are caregiving for someone and you've never really, you don't have that history, right? But with parents, that very much is a theme. So I know that within myself, I'm going to really struggle with this because I don't want to see them age, yet I'm seeing them age. I don't want to see them struggle with the fact that they're aging, and I'm seeing them struggle because they're aging. I assume, although I can't speak for them, they're experiencing pain because they know that more than likely they will be going before me and my sibling, my sister. And even though they're grateful that we're here and that we're supportive of them, they probably feel pain for us because they know once they're gone, they won't be able to help us. Now, spiritually, I have a very different belief about that. I feel that even those who have loved us that have passed on spiritually have the capacity, the capability, the desire, and the will to support us if we ask, if we acknowledge, and we recognize, and we ask for their help. This is the Catholic in me. The difference here is that rather than me praying to some saint that's been declared, as a saint, in Catholicism, my saints are my elders, my grandparents, some of my uncles, some of my aunts. They're no longer here with us. I was just at my godmother's funeral, and I understood seeing people really suffering with her being gone, including my mother, because my mother was there. I took her to the funeral. But at the same time, I feel like in ways, I had the last time I saw my godmother was right before my sister's wedding, which was actually within a week of 10 years ago, which would have been today's 2005, I think, probably, right around there. So it'd been almost 10 years that I had seen him. And there's pain in knowing they're no longer here. She's no longer. My godmother's name was Pilar Castro. And Pilar, my Nina, is what I call her. My Nina, I didn't see her those last few years. I wasn't avoiding her, but life goes on. And in going to the funeral and seeing the celebration of life and seeing her family, her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, all the people that loved her, rather than feeling angry or upset at myself, like, 10 years. How good of a godson was I that I never came and saw her for 10 years? That's not what I choose to carry. I choose to carry the fact that I sat there and saw pictures of the joy she had in the people that were around her giving her love, which happened to be her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren. She was not without a need for love. I'm sure she thought about me a lot. I thought about her from time to time, but life is difficult. I wasn't here. So there's a very raw piece there. But, it was, she and I exchanged love, being present with each other when that time was appropriate. But since I graduated and left home, dealt with my alcoholism, dealt with my sexual orientation and all these other things, I didn't want to come back. I never came out to her or my godfather or a lot of people. And it was because when I left here, it was severe internalized homophobia. In fact, it's funny because I would tell people I made a commitment that I would never, ever return to this town because I did not have a good experience here. I was closeted. I had no support. Any of the messaging around being a gay boy was about burning in hell or being killed by heterosexual boys or gay cancer, right? So it was not a particularly healthy environment to be in, and I made the commitment not to go. And what's interesting now is the question is, well, why did you return? I'm not the person I was back then. I'm very proud about who I am. I am very proud about how I love. And I don't care, really, about other people's opinions of who I love and how I love and what I've learned, or even what I'm doing here. I mean, there are members within my own family that challenged me, going, why would you dare even go back there? You're limited in your employment opportunities and so on and so forth. This is why I did it. I was not going to allow my mother and my father to leave this earth alone. That was not ever going to happen. It's not going to happen unless for some reason something happens to me and my sister needs to step in. But that decision almost for me was made as a child, as a young boy. I knew, and I knew by witnessing, particularly my mother. She took care of every grandparent, my father's parents, her siblings, to a large extent, my father's siblings, and people even off the street that were dying, that needed help. She taught me. She taught me how to love within capacity and to make the hard choices. This was not an easy choice, but it's the right one. Last one. ¿Cuáles son las oportunidades ante mí? So what are the opportunities that lie in front of me? Okay? That's the question. I'm 54 years old. My parents are in their 80s. They could well live another 15 years, which would put me at almost 70. What are the opportunities? This is the last card. What are the opportunities? The word is aprendizaje. I'm pretty sure I know that means learning. Let me just double check. I just want to make sure that I'm using it clear in the correct context. Learning, yeah, learning. So the picture is one of, it looks like a little kid's foot. Could be a girl, could be a boy, and in a sandal. I think these are, and forgive me if I get this wrong, but I believe this is the Brazilian color. The colors of the Brazilian flag. They may not be. But I don't know, the color to me speaks to national pride of some kind. And it's a little foot, right? The foot's not quite big enough to fit appropriately, and you notice even how the toes are in different places. Because an adult would actually have that slot between the largest, the big toe, and the toe next to it, and this one, it's kind of right in the middle. Learning. What opportunities exist for me? Learning. I'm going to learn to be a caregiver. I'm going to learn how to give selfless love. I'm going to learn how to set boundaries and limits. I'm going to learn how to try to take care of myself. Let me go back. I'm going to learn how to take care of myself to be able to continue to support my parents in the ways that I can. I'm going to learn about my culture more. I'm going to learn about how things have changed with those in this community. And I'm going to learn how I've changed. And for those of you that know me, you know that lifetime learning is a huge, big deal for me. So I think it's kind of cool, right? I'm putting my foot in the sandal of caregiving. And it obviously doesn't fit because I don't know all caregiving real well yet. But I do intend to learn as much as possible. And that basically entails the points of view exploration on the awakening. What did I learn, right? So what was the issue? The issue was big life change. I want to be successful. What did I explore? I'm facing something I don't know yet fully. It could be very dangerous. It could be very painful. I'm an innocent as it relates to this, at least. What's holding me or sustaining me or motivating me? bridge, basically immersing myself in the role of a caregiver. What motivates me to go forward? Love. What is the overall theme of this? Pain. And what opportunities lie ahead? Learning. A lot of learning. I promise and commit to you that I did not choose these cards intentionally. What's really interesting about this whole process is as you go through it, if you put your faith in the universe, in chance, it really depends. People get triggered by different words. I've been asked before, is this like tarot or tarot cards? It's not. I don't personally feel that tarot cards are dangerous inherently. I don't choose to use them, but I don't judge people who do. You know, we all do explorations in whatever ways. We might read the Bible. We might read the Talmud. We might go to church or synagogue. We might practice that beautiful daily prayer practice of Muslims. There are different ways that we learn. And it's a beautiful world. Thank you so much for joining me for my exploration. For those of you that are watching, I hope to talk to you directly, yes, but also this is an opportunity to kind of get a check-in with me on where I was. I shared this. And if I know you and you want me to do a reading with you as part of a visit, I am offering that to you at no cost. But this is part of what I plan to incorporate in my coaching practices. I try to grow it now that I live here, because I will be doing that remotely. Other than that, I will be hopefully ramping up providing workshop programs through the Body Electric School and through other efforts. So again, this is Andres. It is Tuesday, July 8th. It's now 6:48 p.m. About 53 minutes we spent. Thank you for spending this hour with me. I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week until we talk again. Peace.